mid-range kind of decks. I think Mitchell's also kind of in that same kind of boat. I mentioned he topped it in a WCQ. He topped with Gold Pride, Punk Gold Pride actually, not this past year, but the year before, which is pretty fantastic. And he's going to start things off by activating Dimension Shifter.
And Steven is going to help the process of banishing cards by activating a Pot of Desires.
Yep. Oh, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7, 8, 9, 10. Cool.
Yep, the players did re-sleeve right here before top 16, so you see those brand new sleeves on their decks.
And those beautiful World Championship qualifier sleeves. We actually saw a Solemn Strike banished through the effect of Pot of Desires. Fortunately for Steven, he has another copy, but he does at least have a sword.
This one searches?
Yep, searches for the light.
That's normal summon?
Yep.
All right,
That's
so
good.
using the normal summon here on Sword Ryzeal. We'll see what he decides to add. Probably X'd, if I had to guess. But I guess he is under Dimension Shifter, so that could change his plays a little bit. Does it look like he has a Called by the Grave in his hand that maybe he opted not to use on the Dimension Shifter?
I have to imagine he drew that off the Pot of Desires.
Oh, that's right. A little too late.
Yeah, it does look like he searches out a copy of Ice. So, unfortunately, Ice Ryzeal is not going to be able to activate because he's already used his normal summon.
Gonna set one card face down, two cards face down, and pass play back to Mitchell Martin here.
Yep. Oh, you're good.
Wow, so Dimension Shifter, a card that some people don't think is necessarily the best against Ryzeal. I feel like people make that statement, though, on the assumption that you always draw Ice. Here, it actually did a pretty reasonable job of shutting down the opening play.
All right, the first Malice monster that Mitchell is going to summon, I'm going to have fun with the alliteration in this one, is Chessy Cat. And he's going to use the effect to banish Malice White Rabbit from the hand to draw 2 cards. Since the Malice White Rabbit was banished, he's able to pay a few life points and special summon back that Malice White Rabbit to the field. And now we're going to see if he's going to be able to use the effect, and Steven Santoli has no response.
It's going to be 300 per on all of the main deck ones. And it looks like he searched out a copy of GWC06.
That's going to help him summon a monster from the graveyard.
Or banish, which we do see sometimes, and especially under Dimension Shifter is actually likely what we're going to end up seeing if it's activated this
Definitely.
turn.
That is the cool thing about the Malice traps is you can activate them the turn they're set by banishing a Malice monster.
It'll be interesting to see how we navigate with Dimension Shifter activated. You know, we've been seeing cards like Haggard Lizardoid being used to link climb. We're not going to see that, though, underneath Dimension Shifter, so it's going to be interesting to see how Mitchell finds a way to navigate through this.
Yeah, he does use the TB11 that he had set. So he's going to be able to special summon that Dormouse from the deck to the field. Normally we see Dormouse being the starting play for Malice, but it finally coming down here as the last Malice monster to be summoned to the field.
So it should be important to note that, you know, sometimes when we see Malice players set cards to the spell and trap card zone, sometimes it's that bluff when they normal summon one of the Malice cards. It actually wasn't the case. Mitchell had the trap card. So if Santoli did want to respond with something like Infinite Impermanence, it actually would have been met by the Malice trap by TB11.
Indeed it would. And now we see him banish all 3 of his monsters for the Link summon of Heart's Cryptor. It does take 3 monsters to make this boss monster, and then he's going to be able to summon back the Dormouse since that has not been banished, while the other 2 have already used that effect. Heart's Cryptor is a really cool one. It has a quick effect where you can shuffle back a banished Malice card into your deck to banish a card on the field.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of Mirajade.
That's a pretty solid comparison. But it can do like some cool tricks because you can banish your own cards and get some extra attacks in as well. But that's not going to be the case here. This is really, we talk about Dimension Shifter being good in Malice. This is the time it's at its best, is when you're linking away those Malice monsters and then summoning them right back.
Yeah, so it's actually a bit of a combo piece here. Though it should be noted that even without Dimension Shifter active, the nature of the Link monsters, SP Little Knight, and as I mentioned already, Haggard Lizardoids, you can find ways
Whitebinder.
Yeah, Whitebinder, just in engine as well. You have ways of banishing your Malice monsters through your turn, even if you don't draw Dimension Shifter.
For 1600.
All right, so he's moving to battle phase.
Get on to
Going to attack over
1500.
Sword Ryzeal. Dormouse is going to connect directly with a direct attack.
4900. We'll activate this.
Sure.
A cost.
Yep.
Yep,
we'll go next team.
Yep, and now Heart Cryptor is going to come back, and it's going to double its attack. When Heart Cryptor is banished, you pay 900 light Chalice to go along with that Book of Eclipse. What's actually interesting is This particular format reminds me a little bit, at least specifically Ryzeal, of when Kashtira was at its peak in terms of popularity, and we actually saw cards like Book of Eclipse and Forbidden Chalice do well in that somewhat mid-rangey format.
Indeed. My favorite card was Enemy Controller during that format. A lot of fun. But we see Santoli starting off with Bonfire to add extra Ryzeal. Extra Ryzeal can special summon from the hand. It's not an activated effect. And then he's also going to have to send down the aggregator from the extra deck.
This tells us that he probably doesn't already have the field spell. Oftentimes, if you have the field spell, you'll actually send a detonator to the graveyard so that your duo drive can move that detonator from the graveyard underneath it as a material. That way, your Ryzeal Cross actually has the ability to negate a hand interaction while also resolving your duo drive. Instead, here he sends the aggregator, which is the more common play. But you might question over the course of the weekend or going forward in your own play, why do players sometimes send detonator to the graveyard? It's actually because duo drive requires that you attach a Ryzeal from the graveyard, unlike detonator, in which you can actually put the aggregator.
Yeah, those are all those little small key things or ways you can pick up and maybe get some information on the kind of cards your opponent may have in their hand. Very important to pay attention to. Now, duo drive is resolving, which is always great for the Ryzeal player. He's going to add plug-in, and I can't quite see if it's
Cross.
Cross and Node.
Node, yeah, Cross and Node.
It's hard because Node's a rare and a super rare, so you got to make sure you look closely at that one. But here comes Ryzeal Cross. He's going to activate it. Looks like he might be thinking about using the effect to shuffle 2 back and draw a card, but he's going to wait on that. Normal summon Ice Ryzeal. This is similar to Tour Guide from the Underworld, but for level 4s. So it's going to special summon out
Sword
Ryzeal. Now another Xyz summon coming down. I'm still sad we haven't seen a Baguska yet, but we haven't really seen too many Ryzeal mirror matches. Finally, number 60, Dugaris the Timeless. This is another card that I thought we were going to see a lot of going into this weekend. You get to use this to kind of dig for those monster interruptions from your hand. You have to drop 2 cards and discard 1, but you won't be able to draw during the next draw phase, so he's going to have to keep that in mind.
X and Node currently. You know, search this off ice. You know just the Node. I added the ice.
What do you add off this?
I special off that.
Oh,
Yeah, the extra special off it.
Okay, because I knew you had ice. Okay, right.
I need discard.
Got to discard for Dugaris. Sends Bonfire to the graveyard. Now he can special summon Node. Node can send the Dugaris to the graveyard to special summon back a level 4. So it's kind of like you're exchanging 1 rank 4 for a new one. Now that you got those draws. It's funny that Dugaris is like a reckless greed with legs. a little
That's a good way of putting it, yeah.
Summon the Ryzeal detonator effect to attach.
So this is that interaction we've commented on and seen all weekend, where the aggregator is now added as an seed material to the detonator to add an additional point of interaction.
Yeah, Mirrorlogical Aggregator can negate any faceable card on the field anytime it is sent to the graveyard, even if it is detached as a material. It's been a key card in the Ryzeal strategy this weekend.
Ooh, it looks like he just drew a Pot of Desires. Talk about a great draw.
It feels really good to activate Pot of Desires at the end of your turn after your combo. After you thin your deck out, a lot of your engine cards and all that's left are defensive options. It's really helpful at sealing the deal. He's probably still trying to dig for something like Artifact Lancia to have high impact here against Mitchell Martin's Maliss Madness.
All secret side.
All right, well, set 5.
I will attempt to go in.
One of those is Solemn Judgment. We know.
I think that was the coolest, smoothest, chillest. Oh, set 5. I've ever heard. Like, usually you would promise a pretty. My eyes get a little bit bigger if my opponent goes set 5 pass, but we're gonna have to see how he's gonna navigate through 5 spell and trap cards. Looks like Mitchell Martin is starting off with Dimension Shifter. Santoli has the Call by the Grave. He just wants to make sure those Malice monsters don't go to the graveyard potentially here.
Oof.
Oh, Harpies, Feather Duster after your opponent set 5. Incredible. But he has the Solemn Judgment.
Wow.
Santoli says no at the cost of half of his life points.
That's risky because Mitchell also is playing a card like Change of Heart in his deck, so there are a few different cards here that can really punish this. Here's a Book of Eclipse, for example.
Harvey's Feather Duster and Book of Eclipse, a fantastic combination of cards to really try and break down this enormous field that Santoli put up on his first turn. I really like Harpy's Feather Duster right now. It's also, I mean, it's really good against Ryzeal. You can put it against Maliss as well, potentially.
So he's popping itself. One of the reasons why you would do that is if you have a plugin, you can actually special summon back out the detonator, and then you can then equip off of plugin, but then also detonator's effect. Detonator allows you to move a material underneath it, even if it is special summoned outside of the actual exceed summon mechanic.
That is important to note.
Yeah, so it looks like he's going to activate the plugin.
Yep, so plugin brings back the detonator. The plugin will allow him to attach a material to the detonator.
Doesn't look like he plays Plasma Hole anywhere in his deck, so he's going to have to put what looks like a Ice Ryzeal underneath it, and then Detonator itself is going to activate and allow him to put the Aggregator underneath.
And you're done there.
It's a good way to dodge cards like Book of Eclipse.
Unicorn effect to Rip Vanish.
I will chain to pop the unicorn.
All right, so he's going to activate Unicorn's effect to banish a card face down from Santoli's extra deck. That's going to prompt Steven Santoli to chain his detonator to destroy the Kashtira Unicorn.
Yeah, plugin is such a critical card in this strategy because going into the weekend, we heard cards like potentially Ultimate Slayer being a decent card against Detonator. The problem is if they search the plugin, even after that first Detonator's been dealt with, you can actually just reestablish Detonator plus Aggregator plus another material underneath.
Yes.
As we saw here, it seems pretty strong, and for the handshake, you would never ignore Steven Santoli.
It's the matchup of the weekend, and now we get to see it here in Game 3, top 16. First time this match, we get to see Maliss go first, and it's going to be an opening of Kashtira Unicorn.
That's a pretty good start. Going to be able to use Kashtira Unicorn's effect to add a copy of Kashtira Birth from the deck to the hand.
So if he can combine this with any Maliss monster, it will allow him to get into the extra deck, but it doesn't look like that's the case. It looked like, oh, never mind. You're just so programmed to see set spell a trap card to think, okay, well, that's going to be the end of the turn, but certainly that's not the case here. It looks like Santoli is willing to play the gambit of seeing whether or not there is a Maliss trap card set, and that is not the case.
Bold move pays off here for Santoli. Now, this is why the Kashtira cards are good in the Maliss deck, because if your all-important Dormouse gets cut off, you can still use the Unicorn to go into Haggard Lizardos, which will be able to banish the Maliss, which comes back to the field when it's banished for 300 life points. And he still has the Birth to bring back Kashtira Unicorn as well.
Yep. We've seen this before where those two monsters turn into Link 2, which now suddenly turn into a Link 3, which now allow him to go into Red Ransom. Red Ransom is going to allow him to search Maliss in Underground, the field spell upon activation. We see here another copy of Infinite Impermanence at the table. We know that Mitchell did not have a trap card initially. Highly doubt he has one here. I guess now what is slightly different is he could activate it in order to special summon out the Dormouse from the graveyard. That was not available the previous time, so there actually is one more possible trap card that Mitchell has at his disposal here that could be changed to this Infinite Impermanence.
Mm-hmm.
He might actually have it. His body language is suggesting, okay.
Oh, he just set the birth.
Oh, he set the birth. Okay.
All right, so that's something to note. If you are playing the Kashtira cards, maybe if you set your card before you search for the birth, that would be one less thing your opponent could consider that you set from your hand.
But then you can just use that birth as a bluff in and of itself.
Exactly.
So yeah, absolutely useful to know.
So, thinking here, probably going to bring back Unicorn.
I think he's got Ogre in hand.
Oh, Santoli's thinking about responding here to the birth.
Yeah, he has Ghost Ogre in his deck, so. He has Ghost Bell, too, though. This might be Bell. Yeah, I was about to say. Ogre, I feel like, is a much more likely activation with less pain in your face. It looked like this Ghost Bell was not nearly as ideal for Santoli. He's really hoping that he's able to establish something on the following turn, because you have to deal with that birth on turns past that.
Yeah, negating the effect but not getting it off the field is rough, especially if he doesn't have much going for him in his hand. But right now, Mitchell doesn't have much in terms of interaction quite just yet.
Oh, he does right here.
Yep, triple tactics thrust. Since that bell was used, he's going to be able to set any spell or trap from his deck to the field.
What I love about thrust in this strategy is you can actually search a Maliss trap, or you can search one of the more traditional cards that people will search. Different dimension, ground, dimensional barrier, even a card like Impulse. So you just have a lot of flexibility. Couldn't get a great view of what he just got there.
I didn't see it.
He flipped it down relatively quickly.
Way too quick. I would assume it's infinite permanence. Oh, I guess it could be dimensional barrier. It's probably a dimensional barrier.
It's likely, but I couldn't see it exactly. I guess we'll have to just see naturally. So it looks like we're going to start with a copy of Pot of Desires. Steven has been able to open up with Pot of Desires in all 3 of the games. Unfortunately here, though, it's met with a copy of Ash Blossom.
That's going to be tough here for Santoli. He definitely needed some cards to get back into this game. Only 2 cards in hand. Yep. Sets the Speller Trap, sets the Speller Trap, and passes.
No cards in hand?
Nothing in hand.
Draw for turn.
This is tough for Santoli. Mitchell draws the 2 cards in hand.
Looks like an impulse that he drew there. Oh no, it's a Maliss card. It's not impulse.
TB11, so he's going to be able to activate it by banishing Red Ransom. That's going to special summon a Maliss monster from his deck. The Maliss Red Ransom is going to be able to special summon itself back from being banished, and things are looking grim here for Steven Santoli.
Yeah, that Red Ransom now is going to allow him to banish Dotscaper from his deck, presumably, though. It's actually interesting is this is going to be a little bit more of a complicated decision, just in the sense that a lot of times when you summon Red Ransom back from the banish pile, you've already gone through a lot of your Maliss monsters. In this case, he's only gone through that Dormouse effect, so he can actually use any of the Maliss monsters that he wants in his deck, as opposed to just going straight into Dotscaper. So I'm curious to see how he decides to navigate this. You know, you're so accustomed to seeing what's the ideal opening play turn. Ooh, here's that use of Solemn Strike. But as I was saying, you're so used to seeing sort of the quote-unquote ideal opening play. It's interesting how turns 2 and 3 might actually shift what you would do with the Red Ransom. So either way, they were not going to be able to see what he would have summoned from the deck, or banished from the deck, subsequently summoning, because Steven Santoli has utilized that copy of Solemn Strike to negate and destroy.
Go.
Let's see where Mitchell goes next from this. He still has the Kashtira Birth on the field. Yep, but he's going to bring back Kashtira Unicorn from the graveyard.
One thing to note for viewers at home who might be curious, the monster summon of TB11 cannot activate its effects this turn unless it kind of cycles out into a different Maliss into its own self back from the banished pile. So
if you're able to banish it out the field and return it to the field,
it will forget that it was ever there.
It has to go down into the rabbit hole and return to the field before you're able to use the effect if you summon it from that trap card.
You're at 65.
We've already used the Haggard Lizardoids.
He's going to normal summon a Unicorn.
Yeah.
He just needs a little bit more damage.
And all 3 off.
Nope, he's just going to go into Heart Scripter. Or no, White Binder. Okay.
Summon effect.
Yep, and he's going to ban